Imagine this. The year is 1323. Northern England. You are running for your life. Your lungs are burning. Your boots are covered in mud and blood. Behind you, a mob of 50 villagers is carrying torches, pitchforks, and axes. They don't want to arrest you. They want to tear you apart. You've committed a murder. Maybe it was self-defense. Maybe it was a drunken brawl. It doesn't matter now. The law is miles away, but the vengeance of the victim's family is right on your heels. You see the massive wooden doors of Durham Cathedral ahead. This is it, your only chance. You slam your hand onto the cold iron ring, the grotesque face of a bronze beast staring back at you. Bam, bam, bam. You knock with the last ounce of your strength. The mob is just 10 feet away. You can smell the smoke of their torches. You can see the steel of their axes raised to strike. And then, silence. They stop. They curse. They spit. But they do not cross the threshold, because you have just touched the sanctuary knocker. By the laws of God and the King, you are now untouchable. This sounds like a scene from a fantasy movie, but for centuries, this was the reality of criminal justice in Europe. It was called the law of sanctuary, a legal loophole that allowed murderers, thieves, and fugitives to escape the hangman just by running into a church. But as we are about to find out, getting inside was the easy part. Surviving the next 40 days was a living hell. If you want to survive the darkest chapters of history with us, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The doors are closing, and we are locked in. Let's begin. So, how did this system actually work? In the Middle Ages, the separation between church and state wasn't just a philosophy, it was a physical border. Once you stepped onto holy ground, which included the church, the cemetery, and sometimes a specific radius around it, the king's sheriff had no power. Some churches, like Beverley Minster, even had a specific stone chair near the altar called the frith stool, or peace stool. If a fugitive sat in this chair, the fine for pulling him out wasn't money, it was death. To remove a man from the frith stool was a botless crime, an unforgivable sin that damned your soul to hell and your body to execution. It was the ultimate safe house. But notice I said safe, not comfortable, because once the heavy doors slammed shut behind you, the clock started ticking. You weren't a guest. You were a prisoner of God. Under English common law, specifically from the 12th century onwards, you had exactly 40 days. 40 days to make a choice that would ruin your life either way. First, you had to confess. The monks weren't running a hotel. Within a specific time, you had to admit to a coroner exactly what crime you committed. I, John of York, did strike Thomas the Miller with a spade, causing his death. This confession was recorded. You were officially guilty, but you were alive. Here is the part the Hollywood movies leave out. Just because the sheriff couldn't come in didn't mean your enemies went home. Outside the church walls, the victim's family would often set up camp. They were watching every exit. Windows, sewers, side doors. They were waiting for you to make a mistake, or they were waiting for you to starve. The church was obligated to provide you with sanctuary, but they were not legally obligated to feed you well. Often, the burden of feeding the fugitive fell on the local villagers. But if you had murdered one of their own, do you think they brought you hot soup? No, they brought you nothing. Imagine being trapped in a cold stone cathedral in the middle of December. No heating, no blankets, and worst of all, no food. Historical records from the 14th century describe fugitives being reduced to eating the leather of their own boots, drinking the holy water from the fonts just to survive dehydration. The psychological torture was worse. Day and night, the family of the man you killed would stand outside the stained glass windows, screaming threats, describing exactly how they would disembowel you if you stepped 1 foot outside the holy ground. Some fugitives didn't last the 40 days. They went mad. Or they simply opened the doors and accepted their death, just to end the hunger. But let's say you have nerves of steel. Let's say you survive the hunger, the cold, and the madness for the full 40 days. Your time is up. The coroner arrives. The sheriff is waiting at the gate. Now you have 2 options. Option A, surrender and stand trial, which usually meant hanging. Or Option B, the ritual of abjuring the realm. Option B sounds better, right? You get to live. But the price of life is that you must strip yourself of everything. Your clothes, your home, your name, your country. You are about to embark on the most dangerous walk of your life. A walk where a single step off the main road gives anyone the legal right to kill you on sight. This is the walk of shame. Day 40. The siege is over. You have chosen option B, abjure the realm. You choose to live, but survival has a price. To leave the church alive, you must strip yourself of everything that makes you human. The coroner forces you to strip down to a simple tunic, barefoot, no hat, no belt, no knife. He places a crude white wooden cross in your hand. This is your passport. This is the only thing standing between you and a sword in the gut. You must swear a sacred oath before God and the King. I abjure the realm of England, and shall hasten to the port of Dover, which you have assigned to me. I shall not leave the King's highway, and I shall not look back, so help me God. He assigns you a port. Maybe it's Dover. Maybe it's Bristol. It could be 50 miles away. It could be 100. You have to walk it, barefoot, alone. And you have to leave now. This was known as the Walk of Shame, but in reality, it was a walk of death. The rules were sadistic. You were strictly forbidden from leaving the King's highway. If you stepped off the main road to sleep, or to find food, or even to relieve yourself, you lost your protection immediately. And remember the victim's family, the mob that was waiting outside the church. They know exactly where you are going. They know you have to stick to the road. So, what did they do? They went ahead. They waited in the bushes at a sharp bend in the road, miles away from the nearest town. Legal records from the 13th and 14th centuries are filled with reports of abjurers being found dead in ditches, their wooden crosses broken beside them. Beheaded by unknown bandits, the reports would say. But everyone knew the truth. It was vigilante justice. The sanctuary law gave you a head start, but it didn't guarantee you'd cross the finish line. But sometimes the violence didn't wait for the road. Sometimes it came right through the church doors. The system wasn't bulletproof. In 1378, 2 knights escaped from the Tower of London and took refuge in Westminster Abbey, right here in London. The constable of the tower didn't care about God's law. He sent 50 soldiers into the Holy Church during Mass. They chased one of the fugitives, Robert Hawley, around the choir stalls. They hacked him to death right in front of the altar. The archbishop was so horrified he closed the abbey for 4 months. The king and the church were at war. It was clear the power of the sanctuary was fading. The power of the state was rising. By the time Henry VIII took the throne in the 1500s, sanctuary was seen as a nuisance. Why should a murderer escape the king's justice just because he touched a piece of wood? Henry wanted total control. He broke with the Pope. He dissolved the monasteries, and piece by piece, he dismantled the sanctuary laws. Finally, in 1624, under King James III, the right of sanctuary for criminal offences was abolished completely in England. The doors were shut, the loop was closed, the era of mercy was over. The era of the modern legal system had begun. Today, the sanctuary knockers still hang on the cathedral doors at Durham and Norwich. Tourists take photos with them, unaware that centuries ago, desperate men clung to that same metal ring, begging for their lives. We look back at this as barbaric, a get-out-of-jail-free card for killers. But in a world of brutal executions, where stealing a loaf of bread could get you hanged, sanctuary was the only flicker of mercy in a dark age. It asks us a difficult question. Should justice always be absolute? Or should there always be a place, no matter who you are, where you are safe? Now I have a question for you. If you were in the Middle Ages and you committed a crime, would you trust the king's court? Or would you take your chances with the 40 days of starvation and the walk of death? Let me know your survival plan in the comments below. If you enjoyed this run for your life, hit that like button and subscribe. We have more dark history waiting for you. And until next time, stay on the main road.